You're especially welcome back to class this evening. So, today we are going to be looking at another very important biology topic, and that is response in plants and animals. So, this is the third video tutorial we are doing for Dex Online Science tutorial. So, if you are new to this page, follow the page so that you get informed when we drop the next video. If you are watching on Facebook, do well to follow, and if you are watching on YouTube, do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are watching on TikTok, do well to give us a follow and also do well to like this video. God bless you. So let's move on to class. So we have in front of us response in plants and animals. Now let's go ahead and dive into this topic because this topic will actually cover the response generally because all organisms always respond to stimuli. So plants respond to stimuli the same way animals does. But this class is going to focus on the response of plants and that of animals, not just any animal, but lower animals. Okay, higher animals are not included in this class. So let's quickly move on to class. So, like I said, the topic is response to stimuli for both plants and animal. But we are starting with that for plants, and then part two will be for animals. But both part one and part two is going to be in this same video. So, as a way of introduction, plants appears motionless. That is, they remain static whenever you see them, but they are highly responsive to change in the environment. These responses are called through slow, coordinated growth movements because plants lack a nervous system or muscle that animals have. So instead of responding the way animals do, their own type of response is kind of different. They respond in a different way, and most of the time, their response are growth response. Meanwhile, that of animals, they are coordinated by the nervous system. So growth movement that we're talking about here can be the bending away from light or bending towards light. It could be, toggle-based movements like the soldering folding of leaves. Okay, so there are some plants you touch them, their leaves will immediately close up. For instance, the mimosa plant. Okay, and also different stuffs can make different plants act in different way. And most of the time, the way these plants respond is actually by growing towards the stimuli or growing away from the stimuli. So let's proceed to look at types of response in plants. Okay, so generally, if you're talking about plants, we only have two types of response: either the tropic response, which is called the tropic movement, or tropism, and then the nastic response or nastic movement. So these are the two types of movement that plant exhibits. If their movement is not tropic, it has to be nastic. Okay, so what is tropic response, also called tropism? What is this all about? Well, tropism is a directional growth response of a plant to stimulus. So the plant either grows towards the stimulus or grows away from the stimulus. Okay, so these are the few key characteristics you need to know about tropic response. Number one, it involves growth. Okay, it has to be growing. Take for instance, if you plant a yam and the yam begins to grow, and then you peg a stick close to it, the yam will either grow towards that stick or grow away from it. Okay, so if the yam is going to move to where the stick is, the yam will not, pull out from the soil and walk like an animal to where the stick is, but the yam will begin to grow towards the direction of that stick. Okay, so that's a growth response. All right, so it always involves growth for tropic response, and also it is slow and usually permanent, meaning that if the plant has moved in that direction, it cannot reverse the movement. Okay, and also it is directional. It has a particular direction where the movement is going. It is either going towards the stimulus or going away from the stimulus. Okay, so we have different types of tropism. Okay, different types of tropism. Four types actually. So the first one I'm going to be looking at is called phototropism. The word photo means light. Okay, so phototropism is actually a response to light. Okay, so you can see the examples I gave. First of all, is for shoots. Shoots always grow towards light. The shoots of plants always grow towards light, towards sunlight. Okay, so that's tropic movement. It's called phototropism because they are going towards light. And it is called positive phototropism because the plant is growing towards the source of light. But if the plant is growing away from the light, then that is called negative phototropism. So for all tropic response, if the plant is growing towards the stimulus, it is positive. If it is growing away, it is negative. So the roots of plants, we all know that it always grows into the ground. Meanwhile, sun is in the sky. So the roots of plants is always growing away from sunlight, while the shoot is growing towards sunlight. So since the root is growing away from sunlight, we call that negative phototropism. Okay, that's growth away from sunlight. Now you can see the diagram clearly illustrating what phototropism is all about. So you can see two boxes. In the first one, you can see that the light is coming from above, so the plant is growing straight. But the moment the light was taken to the side, after some time, the plant grew and bent and started growing sideways. Okay, that's why if you have seen an uncompleted building and you see grasses growing in it, once those grasses get to the window level, they always grow out of the house through that window. Why? Because sun is coming from that window, so they are always wanting to grow towards the source of light. So that's phototropism. Now, number two, we have what is called geotropism or gravitropism. This is the response to gravity. Okay, everybody knows that gravity acts downward, so anything that goes up must come down. So if plant is growing towards the direction of gravity, that means if the plant is growing downward, then it is called positive geotropism. If it is growing upward in the opposite direction of gravity, it is called negative geotropism. So you can see the examples there. The roots of plants. Everybody know that roots of plants is always growing downward, and the direction of gravity is downward. So the roots of plant is always positively geotropic, or it always carry out positive geotropism. But for the shoots of plants, it always grow upward. Meanwhile, gravity is going downward. So the shoot of plants is always negatively geotropic, or always carry out negative geotropism. Now you can see the diagram that clearly illustrates this. You can see first of all, when the bucket is standing upright, you can see that the shoot grows upward and the root is growing directly downward. But the moment we bend the bucket, normally we expect the shoots to be growing towards the left and the roots to keep growing towards the right. But what happens? The shoots bend and grew upward again. And if you check the roots inside the bucket, it curved and started growing downward. So no matter what you do, roots will always grow downward because they are positively geotropic, while the shoots must always grow upward because they are negatively geotropic. Okay, so third on the list you have hydrotropism. Now, what is hydrotropism? It is the response to water. The word hydro means water. Anywhere you the word hydro, whether in chemistry or in physics or anywhere, hydro means water. So you hear things like hydroelectric power plant. That's a power plant that generates electricity from water. You can hear something like hydrogen. Hydrogen is an element. That name hydrogen means water former. So you can hear something like hydrophobia. Hydrophobia means the fear of water. So anywhere you hear the word hydro, water is involved. So you can hear hydrolysis. That's the splitting of ionic substance using water. Okay, so this time it is hydrotropism, which is the response to water. So roots, they always grow downward into the soil in search for water. They always grow towards where water is. So roots are always positively hydrotropic, or they always carry out positive hydrotropism. Meanwhile, the shoots always grow upward away from the soil where water is. So shoots are always negatively hydrotropic, or they carry out negative hydrotropism. So you can see this diagram clearly illustrating it. So you can see for the first beaker, you can see that the water is under, like directly at the bottom, and then you can see high moisture content in between, and then you can see the plant on top, and you can see that the roots is directly growing downward to meet with the water. But the moment we now have another situation where the water was placed at the side and moist soil at the side, you can see that the root is bending towards that direction. So the roots will always go towards the direction of water, meaning that roots are always positively hydrotropic. Now, the fourth on the list, we have thigmotropism. This is the response to touch or contact, and you can see it in the tendrils of those plants that climb, different stuffs. For instance, if you have seen beans before, or common plant around us is punky. If you know punky leaf, you have seen it growing. Whenever it's growing, it has some stuff that look like antenna at the head, at the tip of the plant. So once it comes in contact with anything, whether it is stick, iron, anywhere, it will coil around it and hold it very tight. That is called thigmotropism, and you can see it clearly on the next diagram. Here it is. Now you can observe the second image. I believe you have seen something like this before. That's called thigmotropism. The moment the tendril touches maybe a wood or anything, the tendril will quickly coil around it. So that's a response to touch. Okay, and you can see it clearly illustrated in the first diagram also. And for those farmers that actually farm yam on their farm, you will testify that there are some times when the yam may not be going towards the stick. You will have to bring the tip of the plant, the yam plant, and put it in contact with the wood and look for something to hold it in that position, maybe a rope or something. After you hold it in that position, the yam will now start climbing that stick. That's called thigmotropism. It is the response to touch. If that yam did not touch the stick, it will not climb it. But the moment it did, it began to climb. Okay, so those are the four types of tropic response. Now we'll look at nastic response. So nastic response, or nastic movement rather, is a non-directional response to stimuli. That means it is not going towards a particular direction. Okay, so if you observe the one we did just now, the tropic response, you'll bear with me that the plant is either going towards the stimulus, that's positive, or going away, negative. So that's direction. But in nastic response, there is nothing like direction. Okay, so this is not due to growth, but due to toggle or water pressure that changes in the cell. All right, so you can see that there are some plants Let's take for instance, once the temperature of the environment becomes very high, you will notice that the leaves of plants will begin to squeeze. Okay, so that's not a response to direction. It is not going away, it is not going towards. Okay, it is just squeezing. At that point, it's not because the leaf is growing, it is because something has happened to the cells of the leaf. Either the pressure has increased or it has decreased. So it will now make them to either squeeze or open up. Okay, so you can see the common type we usually have is number one, photonasty. Remember that photo means light, so that's nastic movements in response to light. Okay, so you can see the example, the opening of petals in the day and closing at night in some flowers. I believe you know that there are some flowers that open up every morning and in the evening they will close up. Why? It is because in the morning light begins to show up and so the flowers will open. So when the flower open, are you telling me now that the flower is moving towards light or away from light? It is not. It is just responding to the intensity of light. So because there's light, it will open up, and when light goes off, it will close up again. So that's not a response to direction. It's not going towards it. It's not going away from it. It's just responding. Okay, so that one is called photonasty. And you can still have another one called sigmonasty, also called seismonasty. This one is response to touch or vibration, and I believe everyone has experienced this once in their life. When you touch this mimosa plant, Mimosa pudica, if you touch that plant, the leaf will suddenly close up. Okay, that's what is illustrated in this diagram. You can see that the moment the hand touches it, the leaf closed up, and you see it clearly on the next slide. Okay, you can see it clearly here. The seismonastic movement, also called sigmonasty. So you can see before touch and after touch. You can see that the leaves were once open, but the moment it was touched, it closed up. Okay, so this is not a response towards the touch or away. It's just responding because it was touched, and it is not going towards it or away from it. So it's a nastic movement. And also there is thermonasty, response to temperature. Okay, once temperature increase or decrease, there are ways that different flowers from different plants respond to it. Now, um, these responses, they don't just happen on their own. They are controlled by hormones, and there are five major hormones that controls the whole response in plants. Number one, we have auxin. So auxin, its own function is to stimulate cell elongation. So whenever a plant wants to move towards, let's say, a source of light, for instance, auxin will have to increase, their activity to elongate the cells in that area that needs to grow, so that the plant will grow very fast. Okay, so it causes cell elongation. It causes shoots to bend towards light. That's phototropism. And in roots, high concentration can inhibit growth, causing downward bending. Okay. So number two, we have gibberellin. Gibberellin promotes stem elongation and seed germination, and also promotes flowering. Okay. So stem elongation. Please take note of this. It's very common in exams, especially JAM. All right. Gibberellin actually promotes stem elongation. And number three, we have cytokinins. Cytokinins, they promote cell division too, just like auxin. But this one is especially in roots and shoots. Meanwhile, auxin in excess concentration can inhibit cell division and cell elongation. And also we have abscisic acid. Abscisic acid inhibits growth and induces dormancy in seed. So take for instance, you have dry corn. Those dry corn, if you keep it maybe in a safe place in your house, the corn will not begin to grow immediately. It will remain there and can stay there for a long time before it will begin to germinate. Why? It is because of abscisic acid, which was able to prevent the seed from growing. Okay, so it promotes dormancy in seed, and also it helps close stomata in drought condition. That means in a dry condition. And also we have ethylene, also called ethine. Okay, 18 actually. Now ethylene, which is also called 18, promotes the ripening of fruits and also promotes the falling of leaves, that leaves as abscission. Okay, so examples of plant response in action. You can see everything clearly still. The sunflower turning towards light, a vine coiling around the stick, touch me not closing when touched. I believe you know the plant I'm talking about. Yes, Mimosa pudica. Okay, so all these are just examples of these whole response in nature. And also, we are going to look at the difference between um, nastic response and tropic. Okay, so tropic movement is directional. All right, it depends on where the stimuli is coming from. That's where the plants will go. Okay, and it is caused by differential growth on sides of the organ. Okay, so the growth in any particular side of that organ will be affected. That is how the organ, maybe leaf or stem, will now respond to the stimuli. But you see, for nastic response, it is non-directional and it happens the same way regardless of where the stimuli is coming from. So whether sun is rising from the east or rising from the west or from the north, from the south, from the middle, the flower that opens in the morning will still open the same way. Okay, it will not say, oh, the sun is coming from east. Let me open east first before south or before west. No, anywhere the sun is coming from, it will still open up normally. All right, so right here you can see the importance. So the importance of response to stimuli in plants. Okay, so you help plants to adapt to environment, ensure maximum light absorption via phototropism, because Plants will have to go towards light so they can absorb more light for photosynthesis, and also promote efficient water and nutrient uptake. That's for hydrotropism, and also prevent harm or desiccation. That's for nastic response. So that's why when you touch the Mimosa pudica, it will quickly close up because it does not want to get harmed by whatever it's touching it. Remember that the plant does not know that you're actually the one touching it, okay? And also aid in support and climbing for thigmotropism. Yes, so when they touch maybe steak or anything that the punky leaf tendril touches or yam, it will climb it for support. So all these are all importance of response in plants. So that's where we concluded for response in plants. So let's quickly use a few minutes to look at the part two of it, which is the response in lower animals. Okay, so besides tropism and nastic response, those ones that are in plants, animals too, mainly lower animals, they also show some movement and response to stimuli. And this movement is also divided into two. We have the tactic response, also called taxis, and the kinetic response, also called kinesis. Okay, but you must know that these are not growth response like tropism, but they are locomotory. That means it involves the movement of the organism, okay, towards the stimuli or away from it. Now let's go for the tactic response first before we talk about the kinetic response or kinesis. So let's look at tactic response. So taxis is a directional movement of a whole organism towards or away from stimulus. Okay, so it is commonly observed in motile unicellular organisms like Euglena, Paramecium, amoeba, and some simple animals. Okay, so whenever an amoeba, for instance, is moving towards, let's say, light, for instance, that's a positive response. Okay, so this type of response called taxis or tactic response involve the movement of the entire organism. You know, in plants, it is just that plant is growing towards the stimuli or growing away. This one, they are not growing, they are walking away from it or they are walking towards it. All right, so some things you need to know about this type of response is that number one, the movement is directional, and number two, stimulus can either be light, chemical, temperature, or whatsoever. Okay, but know that in plant response, there's actually not like response to chemical, and also it is an active movement of the entire body, not just a particular part. Because for plants, maybe tropic or nastic, it could be the movement of maybe just one stem or one leaf. But for tactic, it involves the entire organism moving towards the light or whatever the stimulus is, or moving away from it. All right, so let's look at types of tactic movements or types of taxis. So number one, we have phototaxis, which is the response to light. So Euglena can move towards light for photosynthesis. It's called positive phototaxis. And protozoans who can avoid strong light. When they see strong light, they move away from it. Or just imagine you walk into your kitchen and then you point your torchlight in one dark area and then you see a cockroach and the cockroach quickly runs away from the light. So that's negative phototaxis. Okay, so you can actually see that clearly illustrated in this diagram. Please take note that you're not paying attention to every part of the diagram. All right, you actually don't have any business with this part of the diagram. Your business actually with this smaller part of the diagram. So you can actually see chlamydomonas. Okay, so chlamydomonas is here, and then this is sunlight here. So you can see that it either moves towards the light or away from it. So if it is going towards it, it is called positive phototaxis, and if it is going away, it is called negative phototaxis. All right. So this is actually a diagram to illustrate what I'm trying to explain. That's positive and negative phototaxis. And number two, we have chemotaxis, which is the response to chemicals. Okay, so take for instance, sperm cells can move towards the ovum. Okay, that's because they sense the chemicals from the ovum and they know that the ovum is right there. So that's a positive chemotaxis. Or bacteria can move away from harmful substance. Okay, so let's take for instance, the bacteria notices that there's an harmful substance right there that can destroy it. So the bacteria will actually move away from that chemical. Okay, or let's say an amoeba detects food. Food is a chemical substance. If the amoeba moves towards the food, it is positive chemotaxis. And then we have thermotaxis, which is the response to temperature. All right, so there are some flatworms that move towards preferred, not some hot flatworm always move towards preferred temperature zone. So if their temperature is too cold and they notice that heat is coming from a particular direction, they will go towards that place. Okay, so that's positive thermotaxis. But if they are moving away from heat, it is negative thermotaxis. And finally, we have rheotaxis, which is the response to the flow of water. And you only see this in aquatic environment. So there are fish, there are some fishes. If they notice that the water waves coming towards their direction is too high, they will not continue to move towards move in the same direction with the water wave. They will start moving against the water wave. So if the water wave is flowing towards west, they will start swimming towards east so that the waves will not take them away and flush them to another location. So that's actually a negative rheotaxis. But if they are moving towards the same direction with the water current, then it is called positive rheotaxis. All right, and also for the kinetic response, which is called kinesis. Kinesis is a non-directional movement of an organism in response to stimulus intensity. Okay, take note that this thing is not directional. All right, so you can see the key features. It is random. That means it doesn't have direction. The rate or speed of movement changes with the stimulus intensity. Okay, and it is also very common in vertebrates. So you can see example, we have hydrokinesis, and you can observe this in woodlice when wood lice move rapidly in a dry area and slowly in moist areas. Okay, so when they're in a dry place, they always know they always walk fast. When in a wet place, they kind of walk slow. Okay, it's not because they are moving away from the dryness or moving towards dryness or whatever. It's just because they don't walk fast when everywhere is wet, and they walk fast when everywhere is actually dry. And also, we can also have the thermokinesis. Okay, so an organism may choose to move faster in unfavorable temperature. Maybe, for instance, let's say the temperature is too cold. The organism may want to move very fast away from that kind of temperature, or maybe the temperature is not favorable for maybe the state of that organism at that point in time. The organism may want to move very, very fast because the organism knows that it's not feeling really good in this particular temperature. While in a favorable temperature, the organism may start walking very, very slow. Okay, because it's actually a favorable condition, so there's no need to run away or those kind of stuff. All right, so all these are the examples of kinesis or kinetic movement. Okay, so before we call it a day, we'll quickly look at the difference between taxis and kinexis. Okay, so taxis is the movement towards or away from a stimulus. Okay, so it is directional. And meanwhile, on the other hand, kinesis is the movement is I'm sorry, kinetic movement is actually random. It does not have direction. Okay, and the speed or the rate of the movement is actually directly proportional to that of the intensity of the stimulus. So if the stimulus is highly unfavorable, they will always react accordingly. Okay, so the summary of the entire class is actually this. Tropism is a growth movement and it is directional. This one is for plants. Nastic movement is also non-directional. No, sorry, nastic movement is non-directional and it's also a very fast movement, and um, they are actually controlled by hormones. While on the other hand, for animals, there are only two types of movement, which is taxis, which involves the movement of the entire body of the organism towards the stimulus or away, and then kinesis is random movement that actually does not have direction. Okay, but it's affected by the intensity of the stimulus. All right, so this is where we call it a day for this class. So if you have any question, feel free to drop it down in the comment section. And if you have anything to say concerning the class, feel free to drop it down in the comment section. Okay, so do have a nice day. And once again, if you are yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, do that um, right away. And if you are watching on Facebook or on TikTok, do well to give our page a follow. Okay, so until we meet again, do have a blessed day.